Hi, everyone. Welcome to Casual Watch Talk. You're joined by Sam and Patrick today. So we'll definitely need a lot of help from everyone in the comments on picks for this. But Patrick, well, first, did I congratulate you about hitting 1,000 subs yet?
You might have. I don't remember it all. Every
Oh,
day blends into me.
yeah, we should definitely call it out again. Congratulations on the 1,000 subs. Now YouTube cares about
Well,
you.
thank you. I'm officially about 400 watch hours away though. So for anyone out there in TV land who needs to watch some videos, go catch up on some videos so I can get those hours quicker.
Yeah, you don't have to watch 400 hours yourself. But you just
Well, you can, you can.
Well, yeah. No, you're not really responsible for like dehydration. Somebody getting suffering from dehydration or something because they can't leave the. But yeah. So why don't you kick it off with the wristwatch check? What are you wearing?
Well, due to the theme of today's show being somewhat inspirational, I decided to wear my Christmas holiday sweater. So
Oh, hold it
just
there.
just in case anybody wanted to know why they see so much of an ugly sweater here, that's why. But I'm still away for the holiday, so the only watch I've got in hand is once again this beautiful little pocket watch, little Waltham Bridge that I got from
Yeah.
Australia of all places. If you were here on Sunday, you already saw it, but if you're new to it, I'll just show off that pretty little movement, and you can
Oh
see
yeah.
that it's just a pretty little pocket watch. And
We actually got a request on the last video asking if you're going to review that one.
oh, absolutely. I'll get to it probably in a couple weeks. So I think I've got the next couple episodes already lined up. But absolutely, I'm gonna swap it into a different case because it's just a gold filled case, and I don't know, gold filled cases just kind of don't do it for me. So I'm either gonna put it into an exhibition case or find a real solid gold case for it. And yeah, I'll definitely do a video on it.
Yeah, awesome. So I think it was Ray who left that comment. So Ray, there you've got your answer.
Got
Um,
your answer, Ray.
Oh, more important than the pocket watch, we're getting asked, where did you get the Yoda sweater from? They're I think they sell them. One's in
I,
Target, isn't there, and stuff.
this is either Target or Kohl's, and you can thank my wife for it because she gave me two choices. I think they had a Darth Vader one, which actually was better looking, but of course, in the theme of ugly Christmas sweaters, I chose the ugliest green. But I'll show off my
Oh yeah,
beautiful sweater again.
there you go. You're the star of the star of the show. So let me I'll move you from. And McCola's joined as well from Man Cave Leather, our sponsor. Thank you, McCola, for joining. So I've got a new watch. So this is like a bit of an unveiling, really. So I'm
Ooh.
wearing I've got the new speed timer, the new Seiko speed timer. So I had the one everyone remembers. I had the previous one, and it was a little bit too small. Whereas they bumped the size up, and I went with this silver dial. I never am attracted to silver dial watches really, but they've done a great job of this. So yeah, this is the new Seiko speed timer. So I'll be doing a review of that. It's got that same bracelet on, which I was joking. I think I was joking with Ricky from Scottish Watches. I was like, the better, the more they improve bracelets on Seiko watches, the more uncomfortable I think they become. But anyway, uh, one of the cool things was though, and I actually asked another Terry. Who's a channel member and helps us out as an admin on the group. I asked him what box his watch came in because mine came in this really retro box. So you see, it's like this taupe color, and then inside it's got that old
Hmm.
school, the old school tan lining in it and a tan pillow. This looks pretty cool, actually. I thought, oh, well, nice little retro box. So mine came direct from Japan, so maybe it's a Japanese thing.
Okay.
But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it does look a bit vintage
Yep.
inspired, but I love the watch.
Yes, yeah. So I'll be doing a full review of it. I'm going to take some pictures. I'll take some close-ups footage of it tomorrow, and then it's coming off this bracelet. It's actually quite heavy as well. It's a lot heavy. Is it a lot heavier? It's a heavy watch, but considering it's quartz as well, it's a mecha quartz. So, but oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, Pete, thank you for watching. Hope everything goes okay, mate. On that, keep us
Hey, Pete,
updated.
yeah, hope you're doing well.
So this week we are doing great watches for new watch collectors and also Christmas gifts. And I think the summary on this is that you're probably going to want to be Patrick's Secret Santa list more than mine, maybe. But perhaps we'll see how we get on. So definitely, if you've got any suggestions, let us know. I think we've got enough picks to take us through to about 40 minutes or so. So let us definitely know if you've got any picks in there. Yeah, big shout out for Pete there. Awesome. So I'm going to kick it off now. And I had to go in with the Orient. I say Mako, but everyone corrects me and says it's Mako. I had to go in with so this is for new watch collectors. These I think I've owned one of these. They're really well made. Orient, of course, is a Seiko brand. Very well made, very wearable. It's a dive watch, but it's not massive. $145. It's a really decent watch. I think this is a great first watch. Patrick, have you ever seen one of these?
A friend of mine who works at the hospital with me. He's a young guy, so kind of perfect for this list. He got his first watch and it was an Orient, and I don't think it was a Mako because it was a little bit busier. So I don't remember exactly which version of the Orient was. But I mean, it's virtually a Seiko, so I mean, it's a very well put together watch. Very, very, not awe-inspiring in terms of design, but it's a rugged and everyday watch that obviously will survive a beating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great first gift. This, so that's us kicking off, and then before I actually was going to show something before we kick off. If anybody's on Instagram, I highly encourage you to. I don't know. Do you follow this, Patrick? This Watches of Espionage.
I don't think so.
So this guy is a former CIA officer, and he posts watches, but everything he posts, he actually has a story to do with it, and it's usually a story to do with special forces that have worn this watch or a spy that's worn this watch. And he really does like an excellent job of each post is like a blog. He's even got a website as well that's it kind of breaks it down a little bit more. It's fascinating. If you're interested in military watches that were used by spies, how they used watches, the CIA and the military services. And also it goes into a lot about which watches were used to barter for informants. So they would use Rolexes to actually bribe informants. Yeah, watches of it's called.
It looks like I am following.
Yes. It's fascinating Instagram channel. I did reach out to him to ask him if he would come on, but I'm expecting him to say no, and I hope he does say no, because then that's kind of the air of the mystique, isn't it? That he can't reveal who he is. But I forgot to plug that at the start. I've no affiliation. I don't actually know who he is in real life, but it's a fascinating Instagram account. So anyway, Well, I've shown it now. This was another one of my picks. So I thought that I was thinking about G-Shocks, and I think for the money, this is $160, and you can get them a little bit cheaper on Amazon. For the money, I think this is a great gift for perhaps a collector, like a younger watch collector, or somebody that's really into fashion, so that vibrant yellow. But the reason that I like this G-Shock is that it's got everything. It's got solar. It's got the Bluetooth on there as well. So it's really feature packed. And I'm going to upload a review of the Frogman that I sent back. I'll upload it tomorrow. But that didn't have a lot of features, whereas I think this is like absolute feature packed. So I think this is a great gift as well for perhaps you. I mean, I would wear this, so I'm just saying.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're trying to get it, it's certainly a lot more fashionable than, or it has a lot more fashion sort of vibes to it, sort of streetwear vibes to it, maybe sneakerheads vibe to it. Patrick, your first one is the.
Well, before you get everyone super excited that they're going to join my Christmas list. So there's a reason why I went maybe a little bit more upscale than your list, because as a 10, 15 God, I might even be close to 20-year, watch collector. The biggest mistake I think I made when I first got into watch collecting was that I just bought cheap stuff. And then I had a bunch of cheap stuff and it has no resale value and you pretty much just dispose of it. And I am not someone who likes to throw stuff away. I'm not a hoarder, but I like to keep things and I like to keep them clean, fresh, and beautiful. That's my buddy always buys my used cars because he knows when he gets my used car, my car is going to be pristine. And that's kind of just how I am with watches as well. And kind of the biggest thing for me is two, one, I don't think you should give watches as a gift unless it's a G-Shock. I think a G-Shock is like your perfect gift watch, but I think there's too many pieces you've got to put together for a watch. Like my wife knows better than to buy me a watch because she would get it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's where, so I sort of went with if I was a new collector and I knew I wanted to buy something pretty nice and I could save up to get it. I mean, obviously we're talking Rolex, you can't get it even if you want it, but this would be where I would go because it touches all the buttons in terms of, it's a brush bracelet, so you don't have to worry about all those micro hairlines. It's a sapphire crystal, so you don't have to worry about scratching it. It's a beautiful watch. It's an everyday watch. You could wear it to work. You could dress it up. It's timeless. Like this is a watch you can buy, in your mid late 20s if you save up, and you could have this watch until you die. And I think that's what makes this watch just such a great watch for a new collector.
Yeah, and I'll add to that it's not. I know I don't think it's the when you start out collecting. I don't think it's sort of the value because I know certain people get a lot of really enjoy collecting sort of more affordable watches. I think the problem is that if you fall into that mentality of painting by numbers where you're like, oh, I have to have a pilot watch, oh, I have to have this. I think the moral is not the cost of the watch, but just be honest with yourself about what you like. And that's one of the things with that G-Shock that I'm making this all about me. Sorry, everyone. But that G-Shock, that Frogman that I bought, I knew straight away I didn't like it. And I've learned now that oftentimes I would convince myself I liked something because a YouTuber or somebody would instow the value of how cool it was. And I think you've just got to be honest with yourself about, is that your personal taste? Like, do you like it? And because you're right, if you buy there's a lot of watches that you buy that you take a bath on when you sell them. I mean, Seiko as well. I mean, I'm a fan of Seiko, but you take a bath on them sometimes when you resell them. So there you go. So yeah, Mark, that's right. Yeah, I wish I knew somebody who could give me a $6,000 watch. Well, the thing is, what's annoying is that when we started watch collecting, these weren't that price, and the fact is that actually, if you were thinking logically about it, when we started collecting, that this type of watch seems way over what you would spend. I think I was thinking $200 for a watch was on the upper end, but it's funny how your brain kind of changes as you realize that, because you think of $500 as being, sometimes entry level, don't you? Depending
Oh,
on it.
absolutely. I've even tricked my wife when I bought the new Zodiac meteorite, and I told her it was $1,800. She goes, "Oh, that's not bad." And I was like, "I mean,
Yeah.
this is my wife we're talking to. She's the cheapest lady I know."
Well, yeah, it was funny because we went into. I was joking on we have a private sort of live stream group. I was joking on there that my wife kind of released me of the annual torture of trying to guess what she wants for Christmas, and we actually went and bought something. And we went into Tiffany's, and we didn't spend a lot. We spent, it was like a couple of $100s. It wasn't. We're not. We haven't got dollar bills coming out of our mouths. But it was funny that how they treated us like royalty over a couple of $100, whereas a watch shop, it's like, oh yeah, well, unless you're spending quite a bit. But anyway, so next one I had this is actually what I would recommend to somebody who was trying to buy a watch for somebody else, and that's Veya. I love full disclosure, they've sent me watches, and I know the guys really well, so this is definitely a. But I do like the brand. So, but I would recommend these Vea quartz watches because they're rock solid. They've got multiple different choices, and I think for $239, and the reason that I recommend this is that they're they're a US brand that assembles the watches in the US. So if you're from America, I think that adds a little bit of it shows that there's been some thought that's gone into the watch. You know, if you're American, obviously that has a special place, that the watch is, as much of the watch as possible is assembled in the US. And you know, the guys are very passionate about continuing a legacy of US watchmaking. And for $239, it's not, you know, there's a lot of things that are US made that carry a premium, whereas this is you know, this is
Yeah,
this is
well, it's
within
very nice looking watch.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next on the I hope I've mixed these up a little bit. Well, hey, this I didn't put. I'm the first time to not put my own Christopher Ward in here. You got in there with the Christopher Ward, and this is absolutely a cracking watch. But what was your thinking behind
And
this one?
same idea with this. I mean, you know, I said probably not a giftable, but more of a first watch because, you know, as I sort of explained before, I'd made the mistake where I bought, you know, five $200 watches, and then, you know, next thing I know, I'm looking at a little box full of watches, and I don't really like any of them, and I've wasted $1,000. Where if I just was a little bit more patient and I put the, you know, the quarters in the piggy bank, I could have saved up and bought this, which, I mean, by far, I think this is the nicest watch you can buy for about $1,000. You know, I think it ticks all the boxes. It's a GMT. The white dial is gorgeous. You know, it looks kind of like a very famous watch, even though it still has enough of its own DNA that it is its own. And it's a slam dunk winner. If you're a new watch enthusiast and you know you can save up $1,000, you know this would be the watch that I would point you to virtually every time because I think it's just the best of everything.
Yeah, and this falls into my. I'm going to actually be doing a show about this with another very famous YouTuber. We've had to delay it till the new year, but I'll tell you closer to the time who it is. But he's one of the big YouTubers, and we're going to do a show on homage versus copy, and this for me falls into the what I think of a homage, which is paying honor or paying respects to a design. This is a tipping of the hat and a nod to the Explorer, isn't it? The Explorer 2, but it's its own unique watch in its own right. And that's what I like about this. Is what I think of when I think of a homage watch. I don't think of a Steinhardt or one of those that's basically, you know, a cheeky rip-off of a Rolex, whereas this
Yeah,
is
because I mean the dial, as you said, it definitely has the color scheme of the Explorer, but you know the bezel's thinner, the bracelet is kind of more masculine and has, you know, sharper angles. I mean it definitely it is its own watch.
Yes, exactly. So, Mark, that's a great way of saying it, Mark. The Sealander is a true homage; it pays respect, but isn't a copy. Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Okay, next up, this has got to be one of mine because it's on Amazon. I had to do the 5KX, and I'm saying this because they're actually, I think these are a good price on Amazon. You know, $200 for this. You got hacking, hand winding. It's in that old, you know, SKX case, arguably. So wearable. The dial is going to be stunning on this. I've seen a few in person, and the dials are stunning. It's a Seiko. Hey, watch Chris. Watch Chris. If you want to join, please join us. If you've got a minute, dive on by all means, please. I've sent you the link in WhatsApp if you want to join or watch. Yeah, so I think this is a great this is a great watch for to get somebody into watches because you've got the little nod to the SKX here, which has got its own history. I know this isn't the same level of diving, but the other thing as well is that these are, you know, you can give these a knock, can't you? And they're not gonna fall to bits. You can kind of give in confidence. So next one up that we had is no, we had that. We've already done that one. That was our first one. This is one of yours, Patrick. This is the Zin 836.
So I mean, I'm a sucker for something that's just a little bit different than the rest, and I love Zin's tegmented technology, and same deal with just a perfect starter watch. This watch with its tegmented steel, its sapphire crystal, it's a hardy watch. You could wear this, and 10 years later, it's going to look almost like you bought it new. And to me, that's something that's not going to scare away a new watch connoisseur because, when you do buy that first shiny watch that's got a very nice, Grand Seiko-esque patina to it, and you get your first scratch on it, you almost just want to cry. You look at it and you're like, oh my God. So getting a watch that's like this and sort of more of a tool watch, I think is a great first choice just because it it's going to look good for a while. And this one's got the magnetism, the scratch proof. As said, Zen just makes a really great watch, and one day they'll finally send me the one that I ordered about 9 months ago. Talking to you, Zen.
Um, yeah, I know I was sort of joking about I want to be on your Christmas list at the start, but I like the theme of these. These are probably watches that you would buy for a family member or somebody that was quite close to you. And I think all of your picks are watches that would last people a lifetime, like you say. I mean, these Zins would certainly these are rock solid as well. Yeah.
Yeah, made the same mistake in pocket watches when I first started there too. I'd just be like, "Oh, look, this is $100," and next thing I know, I've got a table full of $100 watches. When if I just was a little bit more patient, for $1,000 in the world of pocket watches, you can buy something amazing. I mean, this watch that was just to my side was $820, and that is one heck of tradition, one heck of everything, and it's a heck of a lot better than four crappy watches that are cost you about $200 a piece. And so, patience is a virtue when it comes to saving up and putting your money in an investment instead of just I have to have it.
Yeah, Mark's actually spot on here. He's called me out. He says Patrick's picks could end up as a one watch collection. Sam seems to open the door to more watches. That's a great point. I was having
Nailed
this
it.
conversation. Yeah, I was having this conversation with Chris, who's a member of our Facebook group, who actually works for Amazon, and he loves the value end of watches. He loves the digital Casios and stuff like that. And I actually had a conversation with him. I might try and get him on the show and talk about, because I said to him, I said, do you ever think about if you added those all together that you could probably afford like a Hamilton or maybe more, because he has quite a big collection. And he was like, no, I actually really enjoy these because I don't have to worry about, theft or damaging them or stuff like that. So it's an interesting perspective. Perhaps we'll do a live stream on that subject because it's certainly an interesting topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, and same thing with George Bamford is monetarily successful as he is. He pretty much says he's got a $30,000 wristwatch budget, and that's kind of what you're talking about. He doesn't want to wear something more than that because he just doesn't either want the liability or just the thought of it. Because I've seen his wrists before. He is not gentle to his wristwatches. He clunks them around, and he wears them everywhere.
Yeah, and it's another thing as well that we perhaps since we're talking about this sort of value end of the watches, I think that it seems to be a cycle when you are watch collecting, doesn't it? That I think you have to experience these watches, and that's my thing. I like to experience watches, but I don't necessarily like to have a large collection. In fact, I get more stressed when I've got a large number of watches, but I like to experience them. So I think it's all like a learning experience, and certainly for the channel and stuff like that, I like to see new watches and learn them. I mean, I've only got this speed timer and that Rolex and a couple of other pieces. I'll do a state of the watch collection. In fact, maybe we'll do one live, Patrick. Maybe we'll do one week. We'll do the state of the collection live. Okay, so next up here, another gateway drug, I suppose. Now that I'm being called out, is the Hamilton khaki mechanical, and I think this could be a one and done for somebody. This is a $385, which is an absolute steal for this. I'm showing the Amazon link because they're obviously a lot more than this on the Hamilton site. I think these are Hamilton's still one of the entry-level luxury watches that you can still get a little bit of a cheeky discount on. I suppose Seiko's the same, but I don't know. Have you ever owned a Hamilton watch? I know you've got a few pocket watches, haven't you, that are Hamiltons?
I am not a fan of Hamilton for that exact reason. Just I don't like that it was an American company that sold over to a Swiss company and just sort of, in a way, it's like stolen valor to me. And so I'm not mad at them. It's just not for me. And it's just like a guy on my Instagram. He had an Elgin pocket watch, and he emailed me and pretty much said, "Hey, can you tell me about this?" But it turns out that his Elgin is actually from the Swiss Elgin that bought Elgin in like 1970. And so, then I have to tell him, like, well, it's not actually even an American watch, and it's not even actually that old. And that's kind of how I feel about the new Hamilton. It's just not my thing. I sort of liked Hamilton when they were original.
Um, okay, so well, this is an interesting question, isn't it? Um, is it stolen valor, or did Swatch basically rescue? Because so many American brands were lost, weren't they? So many. America was a huge powerhouse of watches. So many brands were lost. I would see it more as Swatch actually saving, and then they don't lie about the heritage, do they? They are
True.
they are respectful of the heritage, and it's obviously a very important brand to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where it started. Named after the founder of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That's where Hamilton comes from. It's not named after Alexander Hamilton, and I feel like they rescued it, and they've preserved a lot of certainly this style, which is Hamilton was so important in the Second World, I think Second World War, wasn't it? That I feel like they preserved it. They still pay respects to those vintage designs, but they still bring out new. They're not like locked in a homage, a homage of regurgitating the past. They are respectful, and yet they do new designs, and also all of the movie stuff. I think they've actually paid respects to Hamilton Swatch do, whereas arguably it could have been lost
Yeah,
forever.
no, and you're right. I guess maybe stolen valor is going down the wrong avenue because you're right. There's sort of a negative connotation to that, where you're right. They didn't do anything wrong. I don't know. It doesn't give me love, and I don't really know why. It's a brand that even if they released something really wonderful, I would kind of be like,
Well, let's you know what? Let's let's have a look at this, because I think actually that this is. Let me just see if I can actually find the watch company, because I think it's Waltham or one of the other brands that I can't actually find it now, that was sold off, and the name was being used for just to create cheap watches. So I would rather something like Hamilton, Swatch was custodian of Hamilton, than it just being sold off. If anybody knows in the chat, I forget which watch company was. I thought it was Waltham. There's certainly a US brand that they're just basically regurgitating cheap watches out.
pretty much they all did. So Elgin got bought by a Swiss company, and then it got turned into a Chinese company, and they made hot crap. Waltham recently has been like purchased by like Watch Angels. I'm not really sure what that website is, but they're making recreations of old vintage models. And so they've made like the Field and Marine and sort of the canteen shaped trench watches that they used to make, except that obviously they're new. And it's it's I'm kind of in the same boat as that as well, though. Even though they're using a brand name that I love, it's not the same brand. And even though they're once again not being mean about it, it's not for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So NCAR is at that stage. Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of, Pete. I know there's one that's like knocking out just awful, like even date just type watches. But it was an old brand. Okay. Well, let's get back to this then. So that was my one, the Hamilton khaki. Next one is actually this is a really good price, isn't it? I thought this was like a limited edition, but this is a current.
What's odd about this one is I thought this was a JDM or a Japanese domestic market version. And when I was looking it up, it's actually for sale on the American Seiko boutique. And the loom shot of this one is actually my favorite because they use different loom. So each marker, it alternates between green and blue. And it's just a hell of a watch. And I've really been debating whether I would get this one. If they would put a display case back on it, I would buy it in a heartbeat. But I'm just a sucker for the display case backs. But I think this is
Even on
just
the
a great
quartz.
watch. Yeah, even
Yeah.
on the quartz, just because I mean I have nothing against quartz. I just want to see the movement. It's
Yeah.
beautifully done, and I just want to see it.
I actually might be in one. If this had the date, and I think there is a version with the date, isn't there? I didn't realize these seem to have been a little bit more affordable. I remember these being a little bit more than that, but maybe it was because.
Yeah, well, they used to even make some that were closer to the 2700 price point that came on a linen strap, and they were very nice. They were very popular because they were really toned down and they weren't as formal. The steel bracelet at least makes it look a little bit more formal, where a mesh is very casual. But I love the different lug shape here where they sort of shear it off and they just make it look really sporty. So as I said, if I was to pick anybody for a first timer to just get a really great watch that you're going to love for a long time, I think this one will last.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. I like the path you've gone down with these. Okay, so next one for me is this one's a little bit more expensive on my one, but this is a micro brand called Mayan. I backed them for Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter watch I got, it was a little bit janky to say the least, but you could see where they were going, and they actually explained that they were totally let down by one of their suppliers or whatever, but you could see the quality that was going into it. And I think these watches now, I know Ben and a few others have Ben from Ben's Watch Club, a few others have reviewed these, and I think this is another solid watch that would last somebody for a long time. Also, it's a more modest size at 38 millimeters, and a great story. I think it's named after. I'm gonna forget now. I think it's named after one of the boats that took people to New Amsterdam before it was called New York. But yeah, really, I think they use. Do you know what? I think they use Salita movements in them. Oh, it's a Ronda. So it's using the Ronda 150 automatic movement. I'm yet to see these Ronda mechanicals. They seem to be a bit of a darling of the micro brands at the moment. Have you ever seen one of these Rondas?
I think Ronda, isn't that an ETA? That's kind of what I thought it was.
No, Ronda is hey Chris, welcome up. Hey Chris.
He's giving us the hand.
Giving us that. Yeah, welcome. We're just going through watches for new watches.
I was putting the volume up. I put my hand over there.
Well, actually, coming in cold. Have you reviewed one of these Mayan watches, Chris?
Yes, actually, I have one here.
Oh, I was just saying this is they're very well made, and this would be a great first watch for somebody. But let's have a look. Oh, there we go. So, what would you say the 38 millimeter size is like?
It's really nice, actually. Hold on, is it my phone that's making that? I hear you guys repeating.
Yeah,
is my mic doing it again? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
sound good on our end.
YouTube in the background, maybe. So we're just saying about the Ronda movements, whether they're any good. Chris, have you?
This is the R150. The R150, in my experience, is really good.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, there you go. So that's Mayan about.
I'm going to leave and rejoin. I think it's my audio. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No worries. So yeah, so this is the Mayan Husson, about $550, but yeah, good solid watch. They actually do some really interesting other watches as well. They've got this one that's like a bit of a cheeky nod between a Speedmaster and a Daytona.
Mm-hmm. And I saw they have one that looks very AP Royal Oakish, except square. So
Yes, they do. That's their newest watch, actually. That is this one. So this is a bit like it's got the Royal Oak bolt kind of crown.
yeah, I'm gonna say you're losing a point there, main brand, because yeah, that's a bit too homage slash copying. I'm not liking that one at all.
Yeah. But yeah,
Apologies. Sorry about that.
No
no
problem.
worries.
Is the volume any better or
Yeah, now
echo?
that's much better. I'm sorry. There was echo. I didn't know. I don't know why that was happening, but I just restarted it and it started working fine now.
Yeah, no worries. Well, welcome. Okay, so next up, and again, another one reason why you want to be on Patrick's Christmas list here is this. This is your watch for new collectors, and it's a Panerai.
Definitely, I'm sticking to the theme of the new collector. I'm not buying anyone a Panerai for Christmas, but to me, this if you were to dip your fingers in the water of watches, and you wanted something a little bit different, and you wanted something that obviously from a mile away someone can tell what you're wearing, I think a Panerai is the way to go because I like Panerai and. I just think they have such a classic, iconic case shape and crown guard that it's just a winner. And this is sort of their entry level. It's got a date. I put that in there for you, Sam,
Well, thank you.
because sometimes you can't find a date on your Panerai. So I was at least sucking up to the judges a little bit. But here you've got a date and automatic, and I think it's just a really classic watch to I said save up for and make as a first watch purchase.
Yeah, and Chris, you've got a few of these, haven't you? I know you're a fan of Panerai. Do you think it would make a good first watch for somebody?
Yeah, I know a lot of people who buy a Panerai and that's the only watch that they ever own. I mean, if you're buying one like this is a Luminor 1950 case, it looks like. I can't really tell exactly
Yeah, I
which one
can't
this
tell.
is.
It does. It looks like a 1950. This is sort of the weirder 42 size. I kind of went
Yeah,
with the more new dimensions, which probably wear better and be a little bit more timeless.
yeah.
But
Panerai don't, in
yeah,
my opinion, don't wear as big. So if you're buying a 44 millimeter Panerai, I think it wears like a 43 millimeter watch. But
hmm
the 42 millimeter watches wear great. I think I don't own one. No, I don't own one. My wife owns one, but I think they're great. Yeah,
yeah.
and
Because I mean, I
definitely
know
as an only watch. I mean,
I've
it
got a six
works.
and a half inch wrist in my 44 millimeter Panerai. I said it wears wonderfully. I think the 42 probably would be just a little better, but I
Yeah,
said I have no complaints with the 44. It really does fit a smaller wrist.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. You're obviously getting teased in the comments here, Patrick, about your display case back on the 9F Life Quartz.
He agrees. Oh, and Chris, just so you know, I'm wearing my ugly sweater for the theme. This is not a normal choice.
Is that Yoda or is that is Yoda? Okay, I thought it was Grogu. I like it. I'm a fan.
So next up on the list here is the I went with Boulder. If you're a new watch collector, I think Boulder is a solid brand. This one seems to be, I think this has got to be quartz, yeah, but this seems to be on sale at the moment, which I think is a cracking deal. They do a great job of their titanium cases. You've got titanium hardware on the NATOs here as well, and they've got a little cheeky GMT here for $229. But yeah, I've reviewed quite a few Boulders on the channel. They're kind enough to send me some in, but they are solid watches. In fact, McCullough at Man Cave Leather, he also has a Boulder watch. But yeah, I think this is a solid sort of first watch for somebody or a good gift for somebody.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the strap, but I am a huge fan of the crown. I like the interesting sort of design they have in the knurling of that crown. It just stands out to me.
Boulder
Yeah.
makes solid watches, and the use of titanium, obviously, always welcome. I like the case shape; it's kind of original. I'm not a huge fan of the strap either. I'm not a huge fan of NATO straps in general, so
Ooh.
that's just my.
Oh, It's controversial. We're having a controversial evening.
I've never been a fan of them. Never.
Yeah, I'm not either. They stick up too much. They're just too bunchy. And I know it's waterproof, but who wants a wet piece of cloth on your wrist? So like it doesn't make sense to me. A friend of mine, he posted about his rubber NATO, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, at least I'm okay with it because it sounds like it's utilitarian. Because to me, NATO doesn't sound utilitarian. I just feel like I'm going to get dirt and grease on it, and it's going to look ugly, and I'm going to hate it. So not a fan.
I think if you have a sports watch that you're actually using for sports, so if you're diving and you need the security of a double pass through NATO, that kind of makes sense to me. Even a single pass through, but when you're wearing a watch day to day, unless you really like the look of it, it's adding 3 millimeters of thickness to a watch that maybe not, it could be a thin watch and you have 3 millimeters of extra fabric that's sitting between your wrist and the case back, which just doesn't make sense to me. So you design a watch to be ergonomic and fit on your wrist nicely, and then you just bunch up a bunch of fabric behind it, and it doesn't even, it's like sitting in the middle of the watch, so there's space on either side. I've never understood.
I'm here to defend the NATO straps, although I don't know whether we're allowed to call them NATO straps anymore after that cheeky so-and-so registered NATO strap as a name in the US. But here, so Pete McConville's fighting the side with me now. He says the worst NATO strap is more comfortable than the best bracelet. Ooh, controversial.
Those are fighting words, Pete.
They are. I'm okay with that. Somebody's James has put, I'm okay with leather NATOs on something with wire lugs, but they are otherwise not for me. The leather NATO is a really complicated one, isn't it? Because sometimes they're so thick, they really are quite, they really grow over the lugs. And the other thing as well is if you've got to like properly attach them, because if you pull them out, it can scratch the leather. I've definitely had that happen before. Okay, before we set the watch world ablaze with NATO controversy, I'll move to I think we've got some repetition. I'll go to yours next, Patrick, and this is another reason why everybody wants to be on your Christmas list. This is the Captain Cook ceramic diver. This is actually a good price, isn't it? $3,000 for a ceramic watch.
I mean, Rado really doesn't get much love, mostly because you can buy them at Zales and at all the quickie mall stores. So I guess everyone just sort of chunks them into kind of being a crap watch. But particularly within the last years and even 20 years ago, when they were sort of the pioneers of tungsten and hard metal ceramics, Rado is a really innovative company, and they came out with this Captain Cook line maybe almost 5 years ago, and sort of have the new iteration of the Captain Cook.
Yeah, it's a legacy brand, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is just a beautiful watch. I mean, it kind of takes some of the best out of a Submariner and some of the best out of like a Blancpain and puts it together. And like this version here with this sort of really unique brown color and the ceramic and the rubber bracelet, I just think it's a winner. And if this was something that you saw in the store and you saved up a little bit to get your hands on a really great watch, you're getting a heck of a watch here for $3,000, and as I said, it'll survive you a lifetime.
So you took a cheeky dig at Swatch for saving Hamilton, but Swatch also arguably saved Rado, didn't they, as well? And isn't there I forget, is it India or it's one of the East it's one of countries around there that Rado is like the main brand, isn't it? Or it's like they sell a lot, I think it might be India or Korea or something, that they sell a lot of Rado watches. And shout out to not that you'll watch this, but Teddy Balbazar has done some great videos on Rado, probably because he sells them. But I like them. I like the only thing is that I would have bought one, but the hands just don't. They look uneven to me. With that really thin minute hand and the bigger hour hand. I've just never gelled with the hands. This isn't a Rado thing. This is also the reason why I've never bought a Seamaster, a Seamaster 300, even though I'm a huge Bond fan, just because I can't get my head around the hands. But anyway, I've rambled on there. Chris, have you ever reviewed a Rado? Have you ever owned one? Have you ever seen one?
So I used to own a pole router, and I actually reviewed. I think it was this watch. They sent me a Captain Cook to review. And I've been to events where I've seen a bunch of their watches. Some of their watches, they're the ones that they do with like the skeletonized divers and all that. They look a little bit cheesy to me. And I think it's really hard to make a skeletonized watch not look cheesy in some ways, but these are nice. And they make a 30 the stainless steel versions that they make are really nice as well. And they're actually very affordable. I think they're under $2,000.
Yeah, the stainless is even cheaper. I'm a weird metal person, so I like the ceramics and I like the scratch proof. So I know I went a little higher up, but you're right there. Their stainless version of the Captain Cook is, I mean, it's a hands down far more affordable and every day.
And it's a good looking watch, and they make it in 37 millimeters. And it's more true to the original. Not the pole router. What did I say? Overpole. That's what I had. I said pole router. Different brand. The overpole that I had. The overpole is the world timer version of the Captain Cook. So the Captain Cook was 37 millimeters, and they came out with a 37 millimeter Captain Cook, which looks almost identical to the vintage version. I had a vintage overpole, which is, like I said, the world timer.
Yeah, and also I just totally jogged my memory. This watch, the Dire Star, this gold version, very famously worn by Colonel Sanders. This is his one watch. Was this Rado Dire Star?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was a famous wearer of one of these watches, bought with all the Kentucky Fried Chicken money. Although I found out he only sold it for like a couple of million, the brand or something, maybe even $1 million. He more or less, I suppose in real terms, gave it away. But anyway. Okay, so next watch on my list, is it this Amazon one? Yeah, I had to put a G-Shock on here as well, because somebody asked in our Facebook group, they were a Secret Santa and they wanted to buy a watch, and they said I've only got $50, and I'm like, well, try and find one of these, because I think you can pick these up for around $50. Amazon I think is a little high on these at the moment, but I had to put a cheeky G-Shock on for a number of reasons. It'll never break. You can knock them around, they're cheap, they're inexpensive to replace, and also if you've got any people that are fans of space, I mean, these have gone up in space countless times. You can find loads of cool images on NASA's website of, astronauts with Speedmaster on one hand and then the G-Shock on the other. Mm-hmm. It's just it's just the classic as well, isn't it? Rock solid. Next one,
G-Shock is definitely what I would be buying people for Christmas, as I said, because you can't go wrong. When my father was alive, every couple years I'd buy him. He liked Timex Iron Man watches. But that would be what he would run in. And, it was so easy because, you could buy that and you're not going to offend him as long as you picked a pretty bland color scheme. And same thing with a G-Shock, you really just can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. Oh, so I'd say Von Krull here is saying that his uncle met Colonel Sanders. That's really cool. Then next up, let's bounce around to one of yours. This is another one and done though, isn't it? This is and these can be found cheaper. Jomo has these for usually quite good prices.
Yeah, now there's a backstory to this because a friend of mine was gifted this watch by his wife as a wedding present. And I actually am not really that big of a fan of this watch, but I see why she did it because it really does check all the boxes. It has the rubber strap, but it has that little piece of steel integrated into it, which makes it just a touch more formal. And with the teak-inspired deck dial, it gives a little bit of pop, very legible, just a pretty wonderful gift present. And, I probably would have steered her in another direction if she asked me, but, you can't beat Omega quality and just a one and done great wedding present gift. Obviously bigger and better than Christmas. I think she made a really good choice, even though maybe it's not my perfect cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't there a bit of controversy about this one because it can only be on this rubber strap, or did somebody work out that they can actually swap the strap over? But I've always liked the Aquaterra. I've always wanted the 15,000 Gauss, the original that has the Bumblebee second hand. I think that's just one of the most gorgeous Aquaterras that they've ever made. But the problem is like the resale market on them. Goes up and up and up. I don't know, Chris. What's your view on the Aquaterra?
I like the Aquaterra a lot. It's just I don't find them exciting. I guess is the only way of putting it. It's like
Ding,
the
ding,
three
ding, ding,
series
ding.
of like if you equate it to cars. It's like the 3 series of watches. It's a great car, drives great, looks good. Just not that exciting. But I mean, they're great. Again, they're great everyday watches. They're a great one watch. 150 meters of water resistance usually. This specific one with the extra little lug design, really, it's great. I do like the one that you're talking about, the one with the striped second hand, black and yellow. I remember that.
15,000 Gauss.
Yeah, that's an older one though.
Yeah, they kept. I think they still sell it. It's gone through several iterations because they've got it here for 6,600, which is and you can't get like a cheeky deal on because Joma Shop has them down for. I think I've seen them like twos in the twos region. Some of the Aquaterras. Maybe because they've made so many of them over time, but I know you can really get a good deal on Joma Shop on the Aquaterras, and I've definitely flirted in the past with buying one. But this is my ultimate one.
I actually reviewed an Aquaterra on Joma Shop's channel for them.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I did a video about that Aquaterra. They have tons of Aquaterras. I think they're great watches. I don't know if I would ever, because I have so many other watches in my collection. It's not something that I find exciting, but they're great watches, and I definitely recommend it to someone who's looking to, step up from something else like a micro brand or something like that, and they want to do something a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good. I mean, I massive fan of. I love my Datejust, but it's a good alternative to Datejust, and that coaxial movement. David Scottish Watches would argue is more accurate than anything that Rolex have put out, but that's an argument for another time. Next up on my list is the Marlin. This is high. You can usually pick them up for about $45.
Here, you're picking the more price.
So,
I see a little bit of a higher price range coming back.
Well, I don't know if you saw that comment. I think it was from Mark or somebody. Apologies, whoever put the comment up before, but they said that Patrick's picking the one and done watches, whereas I'm picking basically the gateway drugs, where I'm opening the door to somebody getting obsessed with watches and trying to buy
we
more.
sort of had a dual theme today of good Christmas gifts and also, if you're getting new into collecting, what would you get?
Right, these could be stocking stuffers. Some of these.
Yeah, and I kind of took the higher end of that, saying, learn from our mistakes as collectors and don't buy, gallons and gallons of junk when you can save up that junk and buy something pretty special.
That is a whole other conversation that I've had with so many people, and I have that conversation with myself. Like I'm sitting here and I'm like, you're about to buy another watch that you definitely don't need, you should not be buying, and you'll end up selling or lose money on it somehow, So yes, I agree with you.
Yeah. It's well, I might as well. I've got two more picks. This is actually yours, Patrick.
Oh, this one's mine.
Oh yeah.
So I did bring one down to the normal realms of society, and I put in one of my favorite, General Seikos, and I just think this is just a killer of a watch. I love the green on green on green, and the case shape with the 4 o'clock crown and date is pretty much my favorite Seiko iteration. So, this is if I was to point someone towards a relatively, inexpensive first watch, this would be what I would point them towards because, I just, once again, it's a great watch, great price. You're not going to go wrong with that watch.
I'm not feeling this at all. I just do not like the look of this at all. I don't ever see the benefit of having a compass bezel. I just don't know. I think it's the least functional thing that you can put on a bezel, except for nothing, where there's just one dot. But like a countdown bezel, a 12-hour bezel, they're up there. They're the gold standard. But I just never, and I just don't. Yeah, I'm just not feeling this.
As funny as it is, I never even noticed that it was a compass bezel because, as I said, I can count the amounts of times I've ever twisted a bezel on any of my bezeled watches on one hand.
Really, you don't use them as a fidget spinner?
I pretty much do it on videos so people can hear the sound, but besides that, I use my watches to tell the time. I don't use them as countdown timers. I guess I just don't really use them. So to me, it was more just I love the color. But you're right. I didn't even notice it was a compass bezel. You're kind of right. I think that's kind of dumb. It reminds me of the Frank Muller's where they put the northeast, southwest on the Vanguards, and I don't get it. I'm like, why is it there? But
isn't this a isn't it called the tortoise? It's supposed to be the land version of the turtle. So there's a way of actually telling there's a way of using that bezel to actually use, you set, I think it's you set the hour hand where the sun is setting or something like that, and you could tell that someone was telling me this. So I mean, it is useful.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's interesting. I've never heard the tortoise versus turtle, but you're right. If they're making it for the land adventurer, that makes sense.
That's exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I forget which YouTuber. He's quite a big YouTuber, but there was a YouTuber and if you search for it, there you'll find it where he talked about how any bezeled watch can be used as a compass. And you're right, Chris. It's something to do with you set the bezel at looking at the sun, and then you can kind of work the gradient out. I forget which. It was one of the big ones. I don't think it was ID Guy. It was maybe one of the EDC channels that actually did a really good video on how to use any bezeled watch to determine the direction that you needed to go in. But yeah, I suppose if you needed a compass, though, you would go for one of the G-Shocks that had the digital compass on it, I guess. Or you just have a compass. I mean, and most watch collectors, I imagine, might have a compass because you need to find out when your watches are magnetized or not. So anyway, then is this my final one? This might be the final one. This is I love this watch. I've recommended it to people. This is a little high than what I would pay for it. I think sometimes you can get them around the $180 mark, but this is the Citizen ProMaster Dive watch, and I think this could be a one and done watch. It's eco drive, rock solid. It looks the business in person. Yeah, the strap's comfortable. The only thing I don't like about this watch, and it's the ridiculous mini scuba tank that the watch is shipping. I don't know why Citizen still do that. The scuba tank should be something that's for display in a window of somebody that sells these. It shouldn't be the thing, because what do you do with it afterwards? You can't really use it. But I don't know, Chris, what's your view on the old ProMaster here, or even the scuba tank box?
I think that the box is more useful than what you get from Seiko. Like your recent purchase, the box that you get with that is like
my vintage.
It's a $700 watch, and it comes with a piece of cardboard box. I mean, yeah, you're not going to wear the box. I get it, but it's all part of the package. I don't know, but whatever. The scuba tank, it's what it is. What it is. I love this watch. I actually bought one of these and I oil filled it, and it looked awesome. And I actually oil filled the Doro, the green bezel Doro that you just showed. Also, I oil filled both of those watches. Citizen, I love the Citizen. I love the Eco Drive. I love the upgraded versions that they just recently came out with the sapphire crystals, the automatics. I think they're great.
Yeah, so and that's interesting that you oil fill one of these, because that's one of the trade-offs with the oil fill in a watch, isn't it, that the battery can run out pretty quick because of the extra drag on the hands. So I guess with the Eco Drive, you wouldn't nearly need to worry about that. Or
you wouldn't as much. No. Although I've done it with, I've oil filled G-Shocks, and I've oil filled like the Casio Duro, like I was saying, and I never had to change the battery early. But I mean, I don't know. Like I still have my G-Shock, which is oil filled, and I've never had any problem with it. So.
And that's an analog G-Shock, is it, or a digital?
Analog G-Shock. No, I'm sorry. It's a digital G-Shock. Sorry.
Okay.
Light works, everything works. So that would make sense. But the analog watches, I don't think I've had to change the batteries earlier than I normally would have. But maybe I did and I didn't notice. But
yeah, well, Sam, I'll also add, you're on an island. I love the scuba tank, so I think, you're going to give me a worthless watch box anyway. So at least make it a worthless watch box that's fun. And so
and I'm a bit of a, other than watch collecting, I'm a little bit of a minimalist. Like this stuff on my back shelf is like, those books are like the only books except for cookbooks that we have in the house, really. So I just don't like the fact that it's so big, the scuba tank. Like, what do you do with it? I mean, yeah, it looks okay on a shelf, I guess, but it just reminds me, actually, I suppose this is actually a fond memory of back in the day when you used to go and see the watches in a tank in the shop window. Sometimes they would have a dive watch. I think maybe it was a Citizen ProMaster that they used to put with the water. The bubbles used to come up, so it was constantly submerged in water. It was like in a tank in the watch in the jeweler's window. Back in the day when you used to also see those ginormous Swiss Army knives in the window. That was pretty cool. Well, that's been a really cool live stream. Actually, Chris, I didn't ask you. Is there any picks that you had that we've not mentioned, maybe for new collectors, or you think we've covered them?
I really like. There's a few watches that I always point people in the direction of. Mito make the Ocean Star Tribute, which I think is a fantastic watch for the money, and it looks great. There's micro adjust. It's just a good looking watch. That's the Tribute, which is like, yeah, I think I had the black dial version for many years. I sold it and I kind of regretted selling it because I thought for an everyday watch with really good looks, it just worked. It was a little bit flashy. Then I actually have it on the Mito Ocean Star GMT, but this is the Houdini limited edition. So I'll show it to you. That is sort of replacing that watch. I didn't intentionally do it, but I ended up buying this watch.
Oh yeah.
This just came out. So this is 40 millimeters also, and it's the Dude GMT with the Powermatic 80 GMT movement. I would say I'm a big fan of the SBDC 061, Seiko SBDC 061, and of course Tissot PRX. And the C-Star 1000, the upgraded C-Star 1000 versus the older ones, which were a little bit janky. They're still a little bit janky, but I think they've done a good job with, making some minor upgrades that the watch definitely needed. But the PRX, in particular, for a one watch sort of recommendation, I feel like you're getting a watch that looks way more expensive than it actually is. You get the Powermatic 80 version with the hobnail dial. You have a fantastic bracelet on those watches, which for $650. But if you go places like Joma Shop, if we're going to talk about Joma Shop, they have them for $450. And what can you buy for $450 these days that has a bracelet like that?
I'm disappointed that I didn't think of it myself, but you're right. The PRX is pretty much a perfect, entry level one and done. It scratches all the itches.
But respectably saying he owns both of those Tissos. Yeah, I think that they're like, and even if their watch is also that, even if you're a collector, they're still cool. You know what I mean? Like that, especially like the PRX. Even if you have 10 watches in your watch box or more, that PRX, you could still appreciate the quality and the look of the design of that watch, even though it sort of is an homage to maybe the Zenith Defy or the Royal Oak. A lot of people, say that, but I mean,
yeah, it kind of goes back to an era where there was a lot of watches like this, wasn't it? This was like more like an 80s, 70s, 80s throwback. Look at this. They're pulling me in here with a free backpack. I'll click that off because that'll might tempt me. What was the other one, Chris, you mentioned? The Tissot?
Tissot C-Star 1000.
Okay, let's have a look at this one. Oh, yeah. Okay, yep. I think I might have seen one of these in person. Are these actually slightly bigger than they look in person, or am I thinking of a different one?
This is the, excuse me. Sorry. I still have a cough. It's been like a month after I got COVID. I got a cough and I never went away. I think this is the 36 millimeter version. Okay. They make a 36, they make a 43, and a 46. They haven't made a 40 millimeter yet. I think eventually they will. They changed the bracelets up. They changed the bezels on these. They did a whole bunch of stuff to make them a little bit better over the years. So if you got one that was, like one of the earlier iterations of this modern version, it wasn't so great. The bracelet was pretty terrible. The bezel was a little bit janky and loose. These new versions are way better. And you can get them for like $300. So,
yeah, and so the quartz are they 300? Yeah.
So the quartz are at 300, but if you get those aftermarket, they're less than that. And they've upgraded the bracelets on these. The bracelets are actually nice. I guess my only complaint would be that they put polishing down the center links, which I personally don't like. But if you like that, it's nice. I just don't like it because eventually it gets scratched, and of course, fingerprints.
Yeah, and also the good thing is if you're buying this for somebody that you don't think is necessarily into watches, but you want to buy them a gift, quartz is obviously the way to go, isn't it? I mean, mechanicals are intriguing, isn't it, for people? But if it's somebody that you perhaps think it might not benefit or might not like the fact that it's a mechanical, then quartz is the way to go. Yeah. I like the we also didn't talk about Longines, which is that you just reminded me of that. Longines is another kind of one and done watch, isn't it? And I always like the I don't know if they still make the Vizio date, do they? The Tissot Vizio date. That kind of took the word. Oh, maybe it's in the
they still make it. They still make it. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. That really took a couple of years ago. I mean, that was as big. This one was as big as the PRX, wasn't it? When it came out, they kind of really captured the watch world's interest with the Vizio Day. I think that's when I remember the kind of tides turned for Tissot, where it was like less of a, because you used to see them a lot in those in-flight magazines, didn't you? Where it was like typically they would have like basketball or NFL logos printed on the back of the watch. And you would see them in in-flight magazines, and it would be like, oh, buy the watch of your favorite team, and it would be a Tissot watch on the front. But I think this is when the for me mentally the tide turned on Tissot was when they released this Vizio down. I'm like, oh right, they're actually they're actually a big player now, where they're trying to go after that collector community.
Yeah, they have some really great heritage designs that I hope they start reviving too. So they make some really great heritage designs.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have heritage designs, which they should remake.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any more suggestions, anyone? I think we covered most of the bases, but if you've got any that we might have missed out, I don't think if there's anybody in the comments, let us know. Cool. Well, that's been awesome. Well, thanks, Chris, for joining us. Thanks, Patrick, as always, for joining us, and keeping the side up with your ugly sweater. I should have worn mine, but maybe we'll do like a Christmas gifts one closer to Christmas. But as always, guys, really appreciate how active everyone's been in the comments, and we'll see you on Sunday for the Sunday Social. So thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night, everybody.